we thought the best thing that could happen was for 2020 to be over. What were we thinking? 2021 was just a hot mess, wasn't it? I mean, right out of the gates, we had a mob storming the Capitol, and it was downhill from there. Kim and Kanye broke up. Harry and Meghan were interviewed by Oprah, which made the royal family break up. Gen Z went after millennials with all things chuggy. We had an Olympics a year late with empty seats and athletes and bubbles. And just when we thought we might see the light at the end of the tunnel with all things COVID, we got hit with the Delta variant. And all ended last month with the unleashing of the Omicron variant. And then, just because there wasn't enough, packed into 2021, Betty White had to die. And bless her heart, she was one of my favorites. At least we had new releases from Adele and Taylor Swift. We had the Friends reunion back in May, the return of Ted Lasso in July, Bennifer 2.0 in September, and finally Britney was freed in November. But really, pound for pound, it made you want to go back and apologize to 2020 for all the mean things we said about it. So let's keep our fingers crossed for this year. But no matter what this year holds, there's one thing we hold. We hold ourselves. We don't have to be the same. We can be different. We can dictate to the year instead of having it completely dictate to us. That's what this series is going to be about. How to be a new you in a new year in the areas that we do have control over. We're going to explore what the Bible has to say about 5 very key areas of our life: mental health, physical health, professional health, financial health, and spiritual health. Now, any one of those we could do a dozen series on, but here's how we're going to approach this. With each one, we're just going to take a deep dive into the one biggest step the Bible would say take, the one biggest prescription, recommendation that it gives for health and wholeness in that area. So we're not going to be exhaustive on everything the Bible has to say. We're just going to look at what's the headline? Is there one thing? There could be 50 steps, but what's the one big step the Bible tends to highlight the most? Beginning today with the one step the Bible would prescribe most when it comes to mental health and wholeness. Now, before I get into it, let me say a quick word about mental health issues. What I'm going to be talking about is overall mental health. It's not about significant mental health issues that need professional treatment. And hear me say that if you or someone you know has those kinds of issues, you need to get the help you need without any shame or awkwardness or embarrassment. It's not like there's some kind of sin or failure in your life. Mental health issues are real. For example, if you're dealing with clinical depression, get the help you need. It's one of 4 diseases that physicians call mood disorders. And just as diabetes has to do with the body's failure to regulate blood sugar, mood disorders result from the brain's failure to regulate the chemicals that control mood. The need for antidepressants to address this physical need can be caused by any number of factors, including life circumstances. Emotional trauma can initiate the chemical changes in the brain that cause depression, including long sustained seasons of stress. So don't feel any shame. And around Meck, we've just made it legal and appropriate and affirming to say, hey, yeah, I'm on antidepressants right now. My doctor suggested that for me. I'm not sure how long I'll be on it, but they seem to be helping right now during this season. End of story. If someone is dealing with clinical depression, they need to be on antidepressants, just like a diabetic needs to be on insulin. And that's true for any number of mental health issues. What the Bible is going to talk to us about today, what it highlights as the most important step to take for mental health, is for overall, everyday kind of mental health issues, the kind that addresses garden variety types of depression, times when you're discouraged or feel defeated, when you feel isolated and alone, when you don't know who to talk to or where to go, when you feel anxious, when you feel overwhelmed by life and its pressures, when you feel you need some kind of support and help and encouragement. The Bible has a prescription for that, and it's a single step. And let me go ahead and tell it to you, and we'll unpack it a little bit. It would say you need to step into intentional community. This is all through the Bible, the relationship between community and support. Let me just give you a taste. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Let us consider how we may spur one another on Two are better than one because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up, but pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Well, I could just give you verse after verse after verse like that. There's a feel to it. People in your life hold you up, prop you up, keep you up. That's one of the reasons we've had so many mental health issues during the pandemic. There's a correlation between social isolation and mental health. The more socially isolated you are, the more mental health issues you're going to have. That's because there is this relationship between people in your life and mental health. And there's three types of people you need most, and we'll find all three of them highlighted in the life of a single man in the Bible, a man by the name of Moses. You wouldn't think Moses, if you know much about his resume, would be the kind of guy who needed anyone, or wanted anyone for that matter. If you're familiar at all with his life, he liberated an entire nation from slavery, which was followed by a 40-year leadership run that included being given the 10 Commandments by God himself, and then bringing the entire nation of Israel right to the Promised Land. But here's the big reveal. He was able to do those things in the face of what was actually a lot of mental stress, because he was able to offset those liabilities with people. So what kinds of people did he have in his life? Well, again, he had three types of people in his life. First, Moses had people above him. And here I'm talking about calling those people mentors. Here's how that worked for Moses. I'm reading this from the Old Testament book of Exodus, the 18th chapter. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, heard about everything God had done for Moses and his people, the Israelites. He heard especially about how the Lord had rescued them from Egypt and came to visit Moses in the wilderness. The next day, Moses took his seat to hear the people's disputes against each other. They waited before him from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he asked, "What are you really accomplishing here? Why are you trying to do all this alone while everyone stands around you from morning till evening?" Moses replied, "Because the people come to me to get a ruling from God, and when a dispute arises, they come to me, and I'm the one who settles the case between the quarreling parties. I inform the people of God's decrees and give them his instructions." Okay, let's stop there for a minute. Moses is dying in a pile. He's burning out. He's leading thousands, tens of thousands, and dealing with every single individual problem, every dispute, every disagreement, every need himself. It's insane. But he doesn't know any other way to do it. He's in charge. The buck stops with him. It's his responsibility. So what happens next? He gets mentored. Let's keep reading. "This is not good," Moses' father-in-law exclaimed. "You're going to wear yourself out, and the people too. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. Now listen to me, and let me give you a word of advice. And may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to him. Teach them God's decrees, give them his instructions, show them how to conduct their lives, but select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. They should always be available to solve the people's common disputes, but have them bring the major cases to you. Let the leaders decide the smaller matters themselves. They will help you carry the load, making the task easier for you. If you follow this advice, and if God commands you to do so, then you will be able to endure the pressures, and all these people will go home in peace." Great advice. It was so clear to Jethro. When he just took one glance at what was going on with Moses, he knew exactly how to solve this. And he had just more years. He had more experience. He had more wisdom. He had more knowledge than Moses. Moses only knew to swing the axe harder. Jethro knew how to help him sharpen the axe. Do you have mentors in your life? People who can observe what you're doing and can speak into it. People that you can go to with issues and challenges and questions. And someone older with wisdom and experience and insight. If you're a young mom, do you have an older mom in your life? Someone if you're in a particular industry, do you have somebody, maybe you've been in that industry for 5 to 10 years. Do you have a mentor in your life who's been doing what you're doing for 20 or 30 years? In 5 minutes, Jethro changed Moses' life. Who could look at something in your life and bring the same level of clarity and insight because of their life experience? Well, let's keep going. The next group of people you need are those who are beside you. We usually refer to these people as maybe, we're on a team or being on a team, teammates. Let's go back to the life of Moses. We think of Moses as a great man, and he was, but he had weaknesses. He had a lot of weaknesses, like all of us do. There were things that he couldn't do well. One of them was public speaking. He didn't think he was eloquent enough to lead, quick-witted enough with his tongue to lead, and certainly not enough to go to the Pharaoh, the leader of the largest, most powerful empire on the planet, and argue, with rhetoric for the release of the people, and then lead those people into becoming a nation. And he told God as much when God asked him to do that very thing. This is what he said. Moses pleaded with the Lord, "Oh, Lord, I'm not very good with words. I never have been. And I'm not now, even though you have spoken to me. I get tongue-tied and my words get tangled." So what was the solution? Let's keep reading. God said, "What about your brother, Aaron, the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and his heart will be glad when he sees you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you." And that's exactly the way it worked. Fast forward a bit. Moses is ready to go to Pharaoh. Here's what happened. God said to Moses, "I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you." But Moses said to the Lord, "Since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me?" Then the Lord said to Moses, "Your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You're to say everything I command you, and then your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country." So God brought, a teammate into Moses' life. Who's on your team? Who have you surrounded yourself with, invited into your life, brought alongside you that has strengths that you don't have, gifts that you don't have, sensitivities that you don't have? I read up and study a bit on leadership, and, you kind of want leadership 101 is that the mark of a good leader doesn't surround themselves with yes people. They don't surround themselves with people that look and act just like them. What they're really after when you're building a team is you're really after people who have strengths you don't have. That's what makes a great team. So who do you intentionally have in your life? Not having people like that in your life will leave you feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Well, there's one more kind of person you need in your life. You need people above you, mentors, people alongside of you, teammates. Finally, you need people below you. And when I say below, I don't mean in terms of worth or standing. I mean below you in terms of being able to lift you up. Let's just call them supporters. Again, let's look at this in Moses' life. Here was the setting. This was later on in his leadership run. The Amalekites attacked the people of Israel. The people of Israel had to fight to defend themselves. Moses knew, though, this was going to have to be God's victory. They just weren't strong enough to do it on their own. So Moses took his staff and went up on a hill that overlooked the scene of the battle. He knew he held the staff that, when lifted before God, let loose the 10 plagues that liberated the people of Israel from Egypt. The staff that turned the river Nile to blood. The staff that brought down hail from the sky. The staff that brought a plague of locusts. The staff that plunged all of Egypt into darkness. The staff that parted the sea. Now, he was going to raise his staff as a sign of calling on God for victory. So what happened? Let's find out. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, lowered his staff, the Amalekites were winning. Okay, let's stop there. Moses, when he's doing his thing, when he's holding in his hands, lifted up the staff, they win. When he lowers it, he gets tired, they lose. So what happened? Was he strong enough to keep his hands raised long enough to win? No. But something else happened. Let me keep reading. Moses' arms soon became so tired he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. Now, we've already been introduced to Aaron, Moses' brother. He was already on Moses' team. But who is Hur? You're thinking, maybe, is this Ben-Hur? No, that's Charlton Heston, not to mention a different century, not to mention a fictional character from a novel that was made into a movie. So who is this Hur? We don't know. Just a guy. We know that he helped Aaron lead the people when Moses went up on the mountain for 40 days and came back with the 10 Commandments, but that's it. Some think he's the son of Caleb, one of the spies that went into the Promised Land. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, he was the husband of Miriam, the sister of Moses. But we don't know. All we know is that when Moses needed someone to hold up his hands, he had Hur. He didn't have to be anything more than somebody faithful, loyal, willing to serve, willing to invest. Who do you have holding you up, supporting you, cheering you on, and encouraging you, helping you when you're tired, serving you when you're overwhelmed? Do you have any supporters in your life? Well, I think you can already get a feel for, wow, the power of this in a life and how much it brings to a person. So here's what I want you to do this week, just sometime this week, maybe even, sometime today. I want you to take a 360-degree relational inventory, looking at your life from 360 degrees, above, beside, and below, meaning mentors, team, supporters. What people do you have in place? In fact, let's make this really simple. Just take a yes or no inventory to start off, starting with mentors. Do you have even one person in your life who is where you want to be, doing what you feel called to do, leading in that area? They're walking authentically with Christ. They're exhibiting fruit. They're seasoned with experience that is pouring into you, or that you can at least go to from time to time with questions and challenges. It could be a mentor for marriage, a mentor for parenting, a mentor for your spiritual life, a mentor for your professional life. Just think, do you have any mentors? It's a yes or a no question. And be honest with your answer, because this doesn't do you any good to put the answer you'd like to have. Now let's go sideways. Who's on your team? Do you even have a team? Even a teammate? This is someone who is running the race with you. They're throwing their strengths and skills and gifts and abilities into the ring with yours. They're not your strengths. They're not your skills. They're not your gifts or abilities. They fill out your weaknesses and they fill out your deficiencies and your inabilities. Whatever it is you're wanting to achieve, the direction you're wanting to build momentum toward, they're part of the solution. They're part of the synergy, part of the process. They're going to help you make it happen. Anybody like that in your life? It's just a yes or a no. Well, now let's go below. Who's holding up your hands? Anyone? These are the people who you know are praying for you. You know they're going to race to your side and serve you in any way when they sense a need. They're there for you when you're tired and stressed and discouraged. They're there when you need affirmation and encouragement and help. They're not going to judge. They're not going to criticize, denounce. They're just going to hold up your hands where you're tired. Do you have any supporters? It's a yes or a no. Now, here's what you need to do. Oh, actually, let me give you a fourth question. Not just do you have mentors and people on the side and people below, but let me just, for fun, throw out a fourth one. Are you any of these three for others? Are you a mentor? Are you a teammate? Are you a supporter? Because this is not just about some narcissistic, self-absorbed thing where you're kind of surrounding yourself with. It's also about you playing your part in intentional community for others' health. Well, anyway, here's what you need to do. If you have any of those four areas marked by a no, you know where you have a relational step to take. Now, I already know what you're thinking. How? How do I get these people? And I've thought about this one a lot over the years when I've had times when I've had, people in my life and when I haven't, when I've seen other people have the people they need in their life or not. I keep coming back to one idea, one big idea: intentionality. I've been using that word throughout this talk. If you've noticed, I've talked about intentional mentors, intentional teammates, intentional supporters. Community, because, and this is something that I believe very deeply, and the more I've reflected on it and been engaged in trying to build community, as a pastor in a church, and this is where I've landed because it's just a life truth for me. Community is not something discovered. It is something made. It is not something you find or that exists and you just kind of, go and experience because it's just there and you finally found community. No, it's something you have to intentionally develop, which means that the presence of community or the lack of it is your deal, just like it's my deal. But that's not all. It's not just something that has to be intentional. It has to be something that is welcomed. Let's go back to Moses' father-in-law. We saw that he had a mentor in his life. What we didn't see is whether or not he welcomed a mentor in his life. So let's look at what happened afterward. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. He allowed himself to be mentored. He welcomed it. So here's a headline for this intentional community and achieving it. Humility. That really is the secret to all this. It's not about all these people just descending on your life. It's about welcoming them. I'm absolutely convinced that God will bring them into your life, and they may already be there in your life. And you just have to kind of want them and welcome them, have the humility to embrace it. This is really, really key. I can honestly say that, let me tell you a story about why this humility is so important. I know of a leader who was successful in his field and was pretty well known, and he felt a burden for young leaders. And so he took an entire fall season and reached out to 15 or so young men and had coffee with them. And he took that initiative and got to know them a little bit. And he just said, look, I just want you to know, I would like to be here for you. If there's ever anything I can do to serve, if you have everything you want to ask about, because they were all in the same profession. And if there's ever any way that I can just serve, I just want you to know I'm always good for a coffee. And you know what? And they were all kind of local. There wasn't a big geographic barrier. Not one of those young men ever bothered to follow up and welcome him as a mentor. You see, the key to having mentors in your life is admitting that there are things that you don't know and that you need people who do. The key to having a team of people around you is admitting that there are things that you can't do and you need people who can do those things. The key to having supporters in your life is admitting that you've got weakness and then can be weak and that you need people who can strengthen you. See, really what's behind this sense of I don't need anybody, that's just pride. The key to getting the people you need, humility. If you have this I don't need anybody kind of mentality, you'll never have the people around you that you need, really. If you think you know everything, can do everything, or you have to keep up this image or veneer of having it all together and never having any needs, then people will move on and move away and you'll be as relationally empty as you've ever been. If your insecurity or pride keeps you from, hiring tens or running with people who will challenge you, you'll never experience what someone who is stronger, better, faster, or smarter in a given area can bring to your life. If you die slowly in a pile because you don't want to admit that you're at the end of your rope, you'll hang on that rope. So take your pride, take the areas where maybe you're easily threatened and realize those are areas that you need to address. Else you'll never get the people around you that you need, and I mean all around you that you need. But if you'll follow the model of someone like Moses, you'll have mentors speaking into your life in life-changing ways. You'll have a team of players that will complement you and you them, and you'll race your way to whatever goal God has set before you. And you'll have people who hold up your arms when you need it. And trust me, you're going to need it. So that's the challenge. make the intentional, humble move into community. And again, it really is your deal. If you experience community in your life, if you have mentors, teammates, supporters, if you really want to feel connected on any level, it would be because you took the initiative. You made it happen, coupled with the humility to accept it. And if there's one thing we all need for mental health and wholeness, it is people helping us, standing beside us, supporting us. And that's the Bible's one great big prescription.